Welcome, everyone. As you roll in, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. I just put a message in there to remind you as well. We're excited to see everyone today. I'll give it a few more seconds for people to come in. If you do have questions or comments throughout the fireside chat, please feel free to throw them into the chat. I'll keep an eye on it, and Devon and I will talk about those. And I really appreciate everyone who registered and submitted comments as well. We took those into account when we were talking about what we should discuss today. So we're excited that you're all here. Thanks, Carrie and Connie. Welcome. Perfect. Yeah, everyone else, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, ask questions, add comments. Today, we're diving into a topic that's vital for every educational institution, student success. It's a phrase we often hear, but what does it truly look like in action? And more importantly, how can we ensure every student not only enrolls, but also ultimately thrives and graduates? Our discussion will cover the entire student life cycle from their very first interaction with us all the way through to graduation and even beyond. And while your institution might have dedicated student success or advising departments, remember that retention is everyone's job. We have a wonderful expert with us today, Devon Putnam, Director of Student Success at American Sentinel College of Nursing and Health Sciences at Post University. Devon has deep insights into building successful student journeys, and I was lucky enough to work with her prior to joining LeadSquared. Devon, I'd love if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your school as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're coming from. I love seeing all of the introductions in the comments. My name is Devon Putnam. I'm in Colorado right now, a little bit north of Denver. I am originally from Texas. I started my journey as a high school English teacher. I taught sophomore and senior English, and then left the world of Beowulf and Hamlet to move over to higher education. We moved to the Denver area 14 years ago, and I found a job. Of all places, I found it on Craigslist to work at American Sentinel College, which was a small nursing school, completely online. And I thought this will be a great temporary move for me. And now I would describe myself as being service obsessed. I love student success. I love retention. I love the challenge of getting a brand new student and taking them through the entire journey and getting to see them graduate. I find that it's really rewarding. A little bit about American Sentinel. We are smaller. We have about 2,600 active students. We recently were acquired by a large institution, Post University in Connecticut, but our nursing students are all online. And I'm looking at the introductions. I've read the registrant list. I know you may not have nursing students. Totally fine. That's a very specific population, but the challenges that our students deal with probably resonate with some of you all. So our students are a little bit older. They work full time. Nursing is a full time, high stress job, especially when you think about things like COVID and other issues that they've been chasing. So our students have a hard time prioritizing education because they have so many priorities. They're parents, they have aging parents, they're traveling, they're working full time. So one of our challenges is time management with our students. We also have students who are very intimidated by technology, which is hard at an all online school, who are intimidated about writing papers, who are intimidated about being able to do the program to make it work. Some of them have financial struggles. They're wondering how to finance their education and balance their family life. So I think a lot of the challenges, even though our students are nurses, whether you're working with students who want to be estheticians or welders or wherever it is, I think a lot of the challenges are global.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Devon, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always wonderful to see your smiling face. And audience, our goal for you is to take away at least one thing that you can try at your school, right? Anytime I attend a webinar or a conference session, I try to just gather one thing that I can take back and try and see if it makes a positive difference. So hopefully you'll get more than one, but that is our goal today. So Devon, let's start at the very beginning. We know that marketing is often the first touch point when we're talking about student success, and it fundamentally begins with lead quality. So from your perspective, what are some of the most successful lead sources you've seen, and how do they contribute to setting students up for success from day one?
My favorite students to work with are referral leads. Students who are referred to your university are so valuable because it's the highest compliment you can receive, right? The fact that a student or a graduate told someone else about your program and would recommend their friend to come. So referrals come in with a positive attitude and with the belief that they can do the program because they know someone else who is also doing it or has done the program. I just wanted to speak briefly about referrals because a lot of institutions think that it's admissions job to ask. That's an everyone's job thing. We should be asking when you are working with someone in the pipeline, right? A lead who's coming in to say like, hey, do you happen to know anyone that you work with or any friends or family members that may want to start with you? It's really beneficial to go to school with a buddy. So yes, that can happen at admissions, but we also do it at every milestone in our program. When we publish a dean's list, we reach out to students and say, Loren, did you know that you made the dean's list? Congratulations, you're amazing. We would love to work with more students like you. Let us know if you know a friend who could also come back. So milestones in your program, when maybe it's that they just attended the very first session that you hosted or the first course. You should be asking for referrals anytime there's a positive part of the program, and especially at graduation. We take advantage of holidays as well. At Christmas, we love to do, give the gift of education, refer another nurse to this program. Not just at holidays. There's something called Nurses Week in May. We always ask then. So if there is something specific to your field, a time when the folks in your field are really celebrated, that's a great time to ask for referral leads and say, share the gift of education, change someone's future, things like that. Really take advantage of seasonality. We've taken referral leads a step closer or a step farther, I guess, at American Sentinel. And I've watched, it's interesting, when I started at American Sentinel, we did not have a partner engagement team, but we built this idea of partners over the past 10 years. And now 80% of our students come from partners. So what that means for us is we have a team of people, but it started with one. It started with one person who would say, hey, I noticed that 3 of our students work for Geisinger, right? They work for a healthcare system or they work for a specific hospital. We should talk to this hospital, to their HR department, and say, hey, if you send students here, we'll give all of your students a 20% discount. And that's a win-win for everybody. We're now getting students referred to us from a hospital. So very, very easy for us. But they are getting their students, their nurses are getting educated at a discounted rate. We have higher retention and graduation rates for folks who come in with other students as a cohort. So I don't know if that's possible for everybody, but I mean, there are large institutions like Starbucks, Walmart. There are many places that will pay for their employees to go back to school to develop a trade, to get a higher ed degree. And if you're not building a partnership with them, I feel like you're missing out on almost, it's practically free leads to get these folks to come in. Um,
Not only do the employees benefit, right, but the employers benefit as well. They get to retain the employee. Ideally, the employee is a little happier because maybe you're paying for their education, or at least giving them some sort of discount, right? And possibly allowing them to move up in their position or like get a better role outside of the company. So it's kind of win-win-win across the board, right? For the school and the employer and the employee. And
It's
even,
great for employee. Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's great for employee retention. Like a lot of times, an employer will send someone to school and you know that that person is staying for 2 years or 3 years at a minimum because they are going to stay to at least finish their degree. The cool thing about building partners too is there's just so much you can do. So for an example, if we have a partner from United Healthcare and one of their students graduates or does something well, we write student success stories or spotlight stories about them. And then we share that with the United Healthcare HR department or the supervisors, and we say, hey, could you send this to your staff? We really want to celebrate this person. And that has been huge for getting more students at that location or more employees at that location interested in becoming students.
I love that. And I know we were talking too about schools that interact and build relationships a lot with high schools, right? I know you used to be a high school English teacher, and there were constantly colleges coming to your school trying to recruit high schoolers and get them interested in that particular school. So you really have to stand out, right? Like what about bringing an alum to talk about their experience, like someone in the flesh, like so they can visualize themselves in that role, right?
Yeah, I taught high school in San Antonio, and I feel like every college in our area would come to high school English classes to talk about their programs and what values they were bringing to students. And if you couldn't bring an alumni from that high school, that's a big deal. That's memorable. It resonates with students. I also would say it's so interesting because the students I work with now, the average age is 40, right? And I used to work with 18-year-olds. But I am finding that people are really looking for three things just when they're inquiring or trying to figure out how to go to school. They're really concerned about cost. They're really concerned about the time to complete the program, right? How long is it going to take me to get to my goal? And then the third thing is, will I have a job? Like at the end of this journey, what does my job security look like? What am I going to get out of this investment? So if you are reaching out or advertising and you are not hitting those big three things up front, I feel like you're missing out on an opportunity because that's what I'm finding both from 18-year-olds and their parents. That's what they cared about. And these nurses, that's what they care about as well. Those are the big three for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you kind of are diving into this whole nurturing process concept, right? So once we have quality leads, ideally from partner network resources, referrals, right? What does the nurturing process look like? And it's not just about getting them to enroll, right? We want to prepare them for the journey ahead. So how can marketing and admissions ensure students are prepared to be successful in your program? What are some of the strategies that you all use for that?
Something that's been a huge focus for us has been transparency. I think that there's a tendency, both in marketing and admissions, I don't want to say to sugarcoat things, but to put on rose colored glasses and make it look like this is the best program ever and it's so easy and anyone can do this. And if that's not true, you're not doing anyone any favors. It's very expensive to enroll students who will not start your program and not be successful. So we are trying very hard to be upfront and honest on every piece of marketing material we have, whether that's your website, whether it's a flyer that you're handing out, whether it's an admissions advisor talking on the phone. What does the curriculum look like? How long will it take? Not what's the fastest anyone has ever completed the program. We had someone complete in 4 months. We can't put that on the website because that is not an honest representation of what's going to happen. But just being really transparent about what to expect in the program has been important for us. I think that I have strong beliefs, which you may or may not agree with, but and feel free to disagree. I think there used to be this tendency from schools to keep information hidden, right? To force you to speak to someone, I would have to call and talk to Loren if I wanted to find out the cost of the program, or if I wanted to know about the curriculum, or if I wanted to know about graduation rates or retention rates, all of these things. I would have to call. We would force students or prospects to talk to people. I think that should be everywhere. I think that our society is moving to a place where they want to see all of the information, to shop around, to know the facts without talking to anyone, unfortunately. I think one-to-one communication is a little bit of a dying art. I never book a dentist appointment for my kids or sign them up for a soccer season and think like, I hope I have to talk to someone online to find out how much this is going to cost or find out the schedule, right? Like, make that information readily available. No one wants a surprise. When we have students who come in and my advisors start talking to them about getting started and they find out that there are clinical hours, or when they find out that there are tests in some of their courses, if they didn't know that up front and they feel like something was hidden from them, it is very hard for us to recover from that. That is a yucky feeling to go in with. And then we almost have to win them back from day one. So I think transparency is my biggest tip for nurturing leads, just being very honest and encouraging about the program. I think identifying if an admissions advisor can identify concerns or risks from students early on, I would also say the sooner the better, because you can start addressing some of those in the admissions process. In our school, we have students move from admissions, they enroll, and then they work with a new student success advisor. If the new student success advisor knows that there's a student that's worried about writing, before they even look at registering for a course, we can send them templates. I can say, hey, Loren, I have this APA template for you. Here is this for you to use. We also have a 24/7 library. I can walk you through how to use it. We can start sharing resources with them before they start the program to make them feel really supported. And that's been a successful tactic for us for like nurturing some of these leads.
And we had one audience member comment that they're constantly moving deadlines to try to get people in for specific starts, right? And so there's this whole concept of exceptions to admissions, whether it's academic exceptions or moving the deadline. But right away, you kind of know those people might be high risk, right? If they enrolled after a move deadline, maybe flag them in the system and give them a little extra TLC or track them really closely through their first course and making sure they attend, make sure they go to orientation, right? Like they're telling you already that they're at risk. So, what are some of the other ways we can identify students at risk early on so that we know how to support them in the program moving forward?
Yeah, there were two things that I wanted to talk about. One was exceptions, and one was how to identify the at-risk students. So I will say this, we make a lot of exceptions at our school, and it drives me nuts. Sometimes, for example, we have a certain GPA requirement, and sometimes we'll have a student come in and they didn't meet that requirement, and admissions wants to make an exception. Or just like someone said in the chat, or not in the chat, in their registration information, their school is always pushing back deadlines. I totally understand that stress. I would say it's fine to do. It's fine to make an exception to support a student and bring them in, but you have to have a plan. If you are bringing someone in late, what is your plan? And I would make it the same for every student. Do you have a packet of like, hey, we're getting started late and that's okay. Here are the first 5 things you need to do today to be successful. You need to set up your student email. You need to order your books for here, etc. I wouldn't have it being like a fly by the seat of your pants kind of things. You need to have a plan. When we have students who come in with a low GPA, we have a special outreach plan already set up for them. They're getting more check-ins from the new student advisors. We're sending them resources proactively. So I think exceptions are fine. I understand there is a lot of pressure to bring in students. I would just already know what you're going to do to support that student above and beyond what you're doing for every other student. I also think you said, how do you identify at-risk students? You can survey. So we used to have a survey that we would have the student fill out and self-assess how they felt about technology things. So that's a great, very easy, it's a free thing to do. You can get a survey account and survey students, see how they're feeling, and then reach out with resources directed at some of their areas of opportunity. Um, For me, students who, I mean, we use the term ghost us, right? People who are difficult to get a hold of, that's at risk behavior to us. I don't have a perfect solution for that one. It's really hard to work with students who don't reply to texts or emails or phone calls. And I would say that's one strategy is make sure that you're reaching out in different ways. A lot of people don't like to talk on the phone. And I think higher ed for a long time is really focused on only doing phone communication. Phone is better. Phone is better. You're building a relationship. Some students don't want that. Some of them very much want it. But if phone doesn't work, try email. Hey, I couldn't catch you on the phone. This might work better for you. Could you answer these questions? So try a bunch of different mediums. We identify students early on when students get into a course and they don't participate. That's really the biggest high risk behavior that we see. Which I know we might talk about later, but
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention is I know a lot of the schools that our company works with are using like readiness type tests or quizzes, right? One, to kind of engage people and create leads, but then also they have so much information about that person, right? If you're having people take aptitude tests or career readiness quizzes, you have so much information and you can use that to support them throughout their journey with you, right? And you should be mining all of that data and putting together resources and understanding like, is there a specific profile of student that is slightly more successful or has more challenges in your programs than other students, right? And create a plan for them. So the more data you can collect up front, the better, right?
and your school might have resources that students don't even know about, and they don't help students retroactively. As a, for example, we have an ADA coordinator, right? So if a student is dyslexic or has severe anxiety, all of these things they can receive accommodations for extra time or shorter assignments, things like that. And we'll have students halfway through the program mention this, and I'll think we missed it. We missed this because for the past year, we should have proactively been giving you these things. So don't make that mistake. Don't be like us. Surveys are great because you find out that information early on and then you can do something with it. You can connect them to your mental health resources or your ADA coordinator or your writing resources and have students feel really supported. And I think that personal approach to helping them is really impactful from the beginning of the program. Someone wrote in the chat, Tiffany said, our prospects seem to respond really well with texting. I agree. We held off on texting for a long time because we have a lot of different systems that we work with. And the advisors were like, we don't want one more system. We don't want to do texting. It's changed our world. The students are so responsive with the texts. So I agree. I think that's where we're going or where the world has gone already.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to talk a little about technology a little bit later, but one thing I wanted to mention was something slightly controversial. But I mean, I wonder if we could use AI to assess like sentiment and content of phone calls and texts and emails, right, coming from students. Like, can we identify them as high risk or worried or pull out specific keywords and say, like, hey, they mentioned they haven't been in school in 10 years and they're really nervous, we suggest this type of resource, right? Like how can we kind of take advantage of AI and recommending for individual students different resources and support, but then like holistically for your entire student body, what are most people feeling and saying and what are the what are the key topics they're bringing up on phone calls so that you can be prepared to support those. And I just wanted to mention that. I'm curious if anyone is using anything like that and wanted to throw a question out to the audience too. If you are tracking any kind of specific data points or behavioral things during the admissions or enrollment process that allow you to flag someone as at risk of not being successful, if you would throw those in the chat, we'd love to hear them. And we can talk
While
a
we're
little bit.
talking about texting, can I say something really quickly? So we have an inactive team at our school. So when a student has taken courses and then they disappear, right? They are not continuing with other courses. We have an inactive team who reaches out and they try to re-engage these folks and get them back in. And the other day they said, like, we sent this text to 600 students and no one replied. Well, and I looked at the text, and here's a mistake that I think folks make a lot is they didn't ask for a reply. It said, our next session is starting soon, July 18th, but the term is beginning, make sure to register. I thought no one replied because you gave them a bit of information, but you didn't tell them the next step, and I think that's important, whether you're leaving a voicemail, sending an email, or sending a text, unless you are truly just informing someone of things they need to know and stepping away, you should be asking for some kind of engagement from the student. Our next term is coming up. I noticed you haven't been in a while. Reply August if you're ready to get, for your options of next courses. But you should be asking for some kind of engagement back anytime you're sending a mass message, unless you're just informing and moving on.
Completely agree. Don't expect a response if you don't ask for one.
Yes. But we forget to do that. We do
Yeah.
it. We've made some mistakes. So
And one thing I wanted to mention earlier that I love that you said was celebrating these like little small milestones, right? Like, oh, you finished orientation, congrats, or you got your first A, or you finished your first project, you took your first test, right? And I assume like you're watching similar milestones for no progress as well, right? So I know at your school, once admissions enrolls a student, your team takes over. And can you talk a little bit about what you're looking for celebrating successes, but then also identifying at-risk students and like how you support them and make sure they're persisting throughout the program and eventually will successfully graduate?
I think people love positive reinforcement. So we celebrate from the beginning. So we ask, as soon as we get students, we try to schedule a welcome call with them, right? A welcome call with the advisor. And that's the first thing that we celebrate. Thank you so much for booking your welcome call. I'm so excited that you're here. We find that students who book these calls are much more successful in the program. Like, start rewarding students for engaging early on, even if it's just showing up to a phone call and getting them in the courses. So we do a lot of work before the course with welcome calls, sending what to expect on your first day, reminding them of their course plan and what they're registered for. But the first week of our courses, so our courses start every month, and when they open, that is a very busy week for them because, and again, people may agree or disagree, we reach out a lot about participation. That's the most effective sign of at-risk behavior for us is for a new course to open and for a student to not engage. So we are reminding them every single day through different means and through different people, whether it's email, text, phone, to get in there and to post a discussion forum, do the first assignment, read your acknowledgement activity, introduce yourself in the classroom. We encourage participation every single day for the first week of class. They're hearing from us, and when they do participate, we go nuts. We don't go nuts, but we reach out to them and say, I've noticed that you've done this. That's amazing. You are off to such a strong start. I'm really proud of you. I'm here for you. There's a science behind that. Predictive analytics tells you that when you reward good behavior, it will continue. I've done diet apps before. You get a star or a positive text sometimes for logging your food, right? In some of your apps, just for showing up and showing that you're engaged and you're participating. Somebody should be celebrating that. It's very easy as a student to feel invisible and to feel like you're working hard and no one has noticed it and that it doesn't matter. So you have to make it matter. Even if it's a mass text and you're sending it to 300 people that say, I noticed that posted something in your course, it's worth it to send that because it makes people feel seen and it makes that effort feel important. And they're 10 times likely to repeat that effort. For students who don't participate, we reach out multiple times, some mass communication, some personal communication. In our program, eventually, if you don't do anything, you get automatically withdrawn from the course. And then our inactive team just tries to be very positive and go back at like getting started is the hardest part. It may not have been a great time for you in June. We understand. June's a busy month. You're traveling. We hope you're soaking up the sun. How does August sound, or how does September sound? And we try to save that person and get them in the future.
And I know when I was working with you, so Devon referenced this like new student advising team, right? So there's a dedicated group of people who work with students who are just starting the program. They have a lower group of students that they're working with, right? So they have more time to devote to individual students to make sure they're persisting in the program. So maybe consider your advising model. Like, are people most likely to drop out in the first like 6 weeks of the program or 6 months, whatever it may be? And like, should you align different people to that group of new students so that they have more of the white glove service? And then once they're comfortable in the program, you can kind of move them into a different advising group. But I think that's something that was successful for us in the past as well.
Yeah, you only get one chance, right, to make a great first impression. I personally feel like your strongest advisors should be at the front of your program, supporting students, people who are charismatic, people who are fast, folks who are just really empathetic and involved. I'm sure there's different information everywhere, but our data shows us that if we can get the students through 3 courses, they will graduate. We can get them to graduation if we can get them through 3 courses, but that's where we lose students in the beginning. The beginning is high risk. It's very hard to train your body and your mind to start a new habit, right? And education is a big deal. But for us, if you can do 3 courses, we know you'll do well in the program.
Yeah, and just jumping back to something you said earlier when we were talking about lead sources, like if you can get someone to go back to school with a buddy, whether it's one of their friends or someone they work with, right? Then even when they're starting class, they keep each other accountable. They're able to ask that person questions that maybe they don't feel comfortable asking their teacher or an advisor, right? And so they just have that built-in support system as well. So as much as you can encourage this like buddy system when someone is going back to school, I think that's fantastic too.
Everything's better with a friend. I'll also say too, for high risk behavior at the beginning of a program, if you notice a student is getting low assignment scores, or if they're not logging in or they're struggling, every school is different. For our team, the advising team reaches out quite a bit. You may not have an advising team, you may be in a different department, but I will say retention, Loren said this at the beginning, is everybody's job. And for students who we can't get to engage, we then pull in academics. I send our dean a list. I say, we haven't heard from these students. Our advisors can't get a hold of them. I need your faculty to reach out. Sometimes it just makes a difference that it's a different voice. It's a faculty member saying, hey, this is Dr. So-and-so. I saw that you haven't been in courses. I want to help you. And it works. But it should, hopefully, if you have the resources, every place is different. More than one person, more than one department, more than one type of message going out to help engage students and get them started and help support them.
Yeah, one of our attendees today submitted a very insightful comment that I want to share with everyone. And it said, one of the primary challenges in maintaining student quality is ensuring consistency in the institutional voice across departments. It's not just what we communicate to students, but how we communicate it. Our tone, approach, and messaging play a critical role in keeping students engaged, motivated, and on track to graduate. And so, Devon, I just want to talk with you a little bit about how other departments, you already referenced looping in academics, but how can other departments become more deeply involved in student success initiatives? And how can we foster a stronger collaboration between advising and other departments to create this super supportive student experience?
Yeah, that's such an insightful and smart comment. And something that they mentioned was they want the entire institution to have the same voice. So I used to roll my eyes at this, but the place where I work, they're huge on making sure that every person, no matter what department they work in, admissions, financial aid, student advising, the registrar's office, partner engagement, every person knows the mission of the school and they've heard the same buzzwords. So we use the same language over and over and over ad nauseum. When we train people, we say, here are our 9 non-negotiable behaviors. And they are things um, like every student counts. We are student first. We create an extraordinary experience. Sometimes we talk about rules. Loren and I worked at a place where it was a 24-hour response time, and every single department knew that. So when you hear that language in your training, when you hear it consistently in meetings, the great thing about that is it's easy to have a conversation when somebody is failing. And I know that's a harsh word, but let's say there's a student calls in and they have a terrible interaction with IT. And we can say to our IT director, hey, like the student said this, and it doesn't sound like we created an extraordinary student experience here. So I just wanted to pass this along to you. And they are on the same page. They know that that's our mission, and they know that their department is accountable. So that's an easy conversation to call behavior out when you're not seeing consistent language and a consistent voice using throughout the same department. Something that we put in place years ago was Helix meetings, and they've been amazing. So it's such a proactive thing to do. It's called a Helix meeting. You can call it whatever you want. But what it is one person from every department meeting for a specific program. So we have a bachelor's and master's, a doctoral program, so 3 different meetings. And it's at least one representative from admissions, advising, partner engagement or marketing, academics is very important to us. So all of these areas, and we meet and we identify trends. What are we seeing? Is the program growing? Is it declining? Are students passing? Are they failing? What are anecdotes that we hear? What is the student voice? And it's a great time for advising to be able to say like, hey, they hate this class. They hate this class. They don't understand what's going on. The rubric doesn't make sense. And then to identify the change that needs to happen. And the person who can make that change is in the meeting. There should be a dean or someone from academics who says, oh, we can add a banner to the course, or we can change this rubric, or we're going to take this back to curriculum and move that assignment later in the program, or say like, hey, the students are really confused. We offer financial aid. We offer these payment plans. They have no idea who to call. It's very confusing on our website what the difference between financial aid and student accounts is. We can make that change. It's not a special once a year meeting. It's continuous. It's every single month. Some of the programs do it every 2 weeks, and they hold each other accountable to bringing feedback and then to making the change in the moment of like what is not working for the students, if that makes sense.
I love that. And I know when we were working together, we had this sort of open feedback form, right, that the students can submit. And it may even have been an accreditation requirement, I don't recall. But that was super helpful to bring to the Helix meetings as well, right? Like a student reported this past week, like giving them this voice or a platform to anonymously submit feedback or questions or comments about the program and the school and where they're having challenges. And
Yeah, having the feedback form on our website has been amazing. It's also great for those of you who work with different accreditation bodies and have to show that you listen to student feedback and make changes. Having a form where someone can submit their complaints or struggles and then to show how you've resolved them, it's really helpful. We also survey students twice a year, once in January and then once again in July, and we ask them things about what were barriers, if any, to getting started. What changes would you make? How are your advisors doing? What parts of we ask them all kinds of questions. Feedback is a gift. It's the best gift that you can get from the students. And then we review it in the Helix meetings. And every department, again, like looks at areas for opportunity to create change. Retention isn't a magic recipe, right? Like retention isn't like how many times can you call somebody? How much can you tell somebody to turn in an assignment? Retention is finding out where people are struggling, where they're hitting barriers, and removing those barriers for them however possible, or helping them prepare so that they can overcome an obstacle or a hurdle. But if you're unaware of what specifically students are hitting that are pain points, can't fix them. So I'm not sure how often folks on this call survey their students, but it's really, really helpful for us to make changes.
And one thing I love about surveys too is that it brings up positive feedback as well, right? Like not everything is an opportunity or challenge that you have to resolve. It's just a nice small win and recognizing those people who are doing well and then maybe diving into like how are they working with students? What are they doing really well? Can other people, try some of their strategies and see if it works for them? And Devin, I know there may be certain departments or people who like aren't as comfortable supporting the student like an advisor does. How have you worked collaboratively with those departments to make sure they have like the relationship building skills and resources they need to help support the students as well?
Well, resources are interesting because you can certainly have one department fill another department's gaps. Um, for example, we used to have students say like, I want to use financial aid, but it's really confusing. I don't know where to start on a FAFSA. I don't understand what this means. So we started compiling questions that we were getting in advising, and we talked to the financial aid team, and where they were like, hey, what are things that you answer all day, every day that confuse students? Our financial aid team is amazing. They are not interested in building resources. I have a few advisors on my team. They have found programs I did not know existed where you can make beautiful resources, step-by-step guides, videos, right? They can video walk, and we have built resources for the financial aid department to use. Like, hey, you're a first-time financial aid student. Send you this video with tips to getting started. After you watch it or after you do this, here's an FAQ document with the top 5 questions we get asked. So I would lean on other departments to help each other build resources. There is the expectation that anyone student facing, again, it's going back to that common language. Anyone who is student facing is here to retain the student, we say happy and proud all the time, create happy and proud students, make it personal. We always say that post makes it personal. Um, but and that starts with the hiring process, right? That starts with the hiring process is to let people know up front, hey, when you come to our institution, we just have a really high level of expectation for service. We are service obsessed. So when you're on the phone with the student, like this is what we want. We want everybody to leave happier than when they called in, and let them know up front, this is who we are. But I definitely find my team making quite a few resources. Academics will say, we need this in the course, but we don't know how to do it. Great, we can build that. Our librarians told us, hey, students are getting confused about these databases. Great, we can build a resource for that. We can build a guide. Um, I know, I'm sure everybody says like cross collaboration is important, but it really is. It really strengthens the entire experience for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to address that all of everything we've been talking about can be very time or human intensive, right? Like I'm sure if everyone had an individual advisor, they would like continue on and graduate. So I do want to talk a little bit about how we can take advantage of technology to help provide a more like personalized experience and high touch experience when maybe we have so many students, we don't really know what to do with them, right? Or a huge influx of leads or students coming in and you feel like you can't support them. How can we use technology to help that?
I think there's so much that we can do with technology. One of my advisors said something to a student the other day that really rubbed me the wrong way. they said something like, per my email below, blah, 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 which I think is a little bit condescending. It makes the student feel like they didn't read the email, which they didn't read the email. But we want to avoid that language. So I started taking my time to put together like things to say in an escalated student situation, to say or write, and things not to say, words to avoid. And I was like, I wonder if AI can do this. Spoiler, it can, right? And it can do a much better job than I can. So I have started giving my team tools with just like, you know, ways to deliver tough news, failing courses, things like that. How to de-escalate a situation when someone is furious, things that you can say that help them feel heard and seen and validated, and to move to a place where it can say, hey, now we're ready to move forward. So AI has phenomenal ideas. AI has also put together some great resources for us, as far as step-by-step guides. We've like launched some new policies and programs. They've helped kind of introduce them in a student-friendly way. They've given me ideas of how to send them out to students. Um, I know we're just talking about AI. I have just so much to say in general about technology. I don't know if other folks struggle with this, but online school can, for us, and I know not everybody is online, can be very isolating, right? Someone in Iowa is taking a course all by themselves. They're 50 years old. They haven't been to school in 30 years. They don't know how to use the online library. They feel very, very alone. We have Facebook groups. I know Facebook is old, but we are trying very hard to create a sense of community. And the students go in there and they're asking each other questions and they're building each other up. And that the peer-to-peer connection with this just like very genuine support from a community has been helpful for us. So maybe I hope you're leveraging social media, areas of students. And I know that there are tools where you can build a student lounge, or there are other, you don't have to use Facebook, right? Our population likes it, but every population is different. But where to create community. We've used AI to make checklists for our students about preparing for the first course. AI has great tips on time management. I mean, if you can learn to prompt it for whatever you need, it's an extraordinarily powerful tool and a huge time saver.
Yeah, definitely. And as I mentioned before, I'm curious to see if any companies are using AI to assess like student sentiment in communication, right? Like texts, emails, calls. What is the student feeling? What are they saying? Who needs help? What do they need help with, type of thing. And I would also say, like, one of the key things to being able to handle a large group of students is having a platform or a CRM that allows you to easily communicate with them, right? And track what's going on with them. So you should be able to text and call directly from your platform. You should ideally be able to see notes and email communication across departments so you know how to support that person. I know one of the things I always struggled with was like we had no idea that conversations admissions was having before they were passed over to student success. And they've built this super strong relationship with the student, and then I have to start from square one building that relationship, right? If we have this technology that is really nicely integrated, sharing the data points, then we can really build this system and web of support for the student across the school.
Just in the past 2 years, we have put advising and admissions as well as student accounts on the same CRM. We've given everyone access to see and use the same system. And it's been more helpful than I could have imagined. It is really nice to see the admissions notes and to see the conversations. I can tell so much from a student just by clicking through their notes in 3 minutes. I can see how they like to communicate. Sometimes we can see their reason for going back to school, which is great for advisors to know, to understand from the beginning the student's why and their motivation. I can see the concerns that they brought up, like what's really important to them. It's incredibly helpful to have visibility into this, even if you're not both using the same CRM, maybe there's a different student information system. but I feel like everyone should at least have access to all of the notes and to get the big picture of what the student needs, right?
Of course, yeah. And a CRM can also help you personalize a little better at scale or automate things, right? If a student hasn't logged in or attended class, you can set it up so the system automatically sends them a text message like, hey, just checking in. Is everything okay? I noticed you didn't attend class today, right? Like automating some of these communications to provide a more personalized experience, but not having a person have to actually do them. I think technology can really help with those type of things.
Once you have a communication plan built out and set up in your system, it really saves you. Like I know next week on Tuesday, students who don't participate are getting an email from our dean that's already written and you know what I mean? It's already saved in there. But it's a no-brainer, right? I don't have to do anything. I put it in place a year ago and it just happens. So that's really
Yeah,
nice.
perfect. Awesome. Well, Devon, thank you so much for the insightful comments today. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with before we open it up for some questions from them?
I don't think so. I would say thank you for coming here and being invested, right? In growing your student body and retaining them and creating an extraordinary experience for your students. I think it's always the best people are people who are attending webinars and furthering their own knowledge and hearing what other people are doing. I think that's really powerful. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for coming in. We hope everyone at least got one little snippet that they can go back and try at their school to improve the student success initiatives. And I'd like to open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions or comments, please throw those in the chat and we will answer them.
I love that I've seen a few schools from Colorado, a culinary school. I think there was a hair school, maybe, or a salon school from Colorado Springs. I love that. I love seeing where everyone's from. Someone's from Arkansas. It's amazing. What a great variety.
Yeah, definitely great variety. And I think it just goes to show how the challenges are similar no matter which school you work for, right? And one from
Yes.
Canada. I
Test
don't,
pilot school.
very cool. I think this will be recorded for reviewing, and you should receive an email with the link. Yvette is asking, do these rules still apply for online students? And Devon, I would say, I mean, Devon works for an exclusively online school, so everything she has said, I feel like pertains to the online population. Anything to add to that?
Which specific rule? So the rules that we've been talking about as far as reaching out at identifying at-risk things, like I've been speaking primarily to online, but I think I mean, we do have a main campus, and I talk to those advisors, and we have a small campus in Connecticut. They're doing the same things for on campus. They're trying to build a sense of community, making sure people are participating, showing up, celebrating milestones, asking for referrals, building a partner engagement team for the on-ground school. All of the strategies we've talked about, I think, can be tweaked or applied to any kind of school.
And I would just say, Devon, can you speak a little bit about your self-paced programs?
Yeah, they're really interesting. So we have a program called SimPath, and those programs start every month. But if you start in the program, it is a 16-week semester that the student is paying for. The student is essentially purchasing a 16-week block of time, and then they are trying to complete as many courses as possible in that time frame. So, and we tell them up front, like, hey, you really want to aim to complete 3 courses or more. If you are just going to complete 1 or 2 in 16 weeks, you're better off in a traditional program. It's more cost effective for you. But we have in the courses in SimPath, it's a lot of simulation based learning. They can show their learning in different ways, whether it's writing a paper or making a PowerPoint or a video that's a little bit more creative to show their competency in areas. We have some students who complete 3 courses, but some who do 4, 5, 6 in that block of time. And then when that semester ends, they purchase a new 16-week semester and they try to complete there. Those programs are wonderful for the students who like them. For students who are procrastinators, it's a difficult program because we will reach out and say, hey, you haven't participated. It's week 2, it's week 3, we're getting concerned. And they'll say, oh, it's 16 weeks. I'm going to do it next week, next week. Sometimes I always say we've given them the rope to hang themselves. There's just so much freedom in having no deadlines that sometimes there are students who will purchase that 16-week semester, which is expensive, and not finish any courses. So there is some risk in that program, but it's also high reward for people who are very motivated.
Yeah, a little trickier to support them and identify the at-risk people too when there aren't set deadlines there. Kristen is asking, when you were building the CRM for cross communication between admissions, advising, financial aid, etc., who all did you have in that meeting, or who would you recommend to be a part of that build?
So we had our CRM representative was in that meeting. We also had someone from compliance or regulatory in that meeting. And then we had one leader from every student facing department. So it was admissions, advising, financial aid, student accounts. Our registrar's office kind of runs our school, the functionality of our school. So they were very important for us to include. It took us a year to move systems. So it was a long process because we were moving old notes from one system to another, old student files. We are training our teams how to use it. And that's where having a CRM representative comes in handy, is that we had our CRM representative hosted all of the trainings on how to register a student, how to make notes, how to change a student's contact information, all of those little how-tos. They showed us how to do it, but we met, I think 3 days a week for a year. So it was a huge investment in time for us. And it may not be like, right, that may not be everyone's situation, just depending on the scale.
And I would say from my experience too, exactly what Devon said, leaders from every department. But then once you get to the point where the system is mostly built out or you have the strategy set, maybe consider including like a power user or a champion from each department that's going to actually use the platform and get their buy-in and help with the change management process across the school, right? Because sometimes the leaders may have an entire year to prepare for this change, and then all of a sudden it's thrown on to the actual end users and they get frustrated and overwhelmed, right? But if they have exposure to it early on and to how things are going to change, how they're going to look, I always encourage our customers at least to include some of the end users during the build, just so that they feel like their voice is heard and understand what's coming. Any other questions? We have 2 more minutes. Doesn't look like it. Devon, thank you so much again. It's always a joy to chat with you.
You
And
as
I hope
well.
you have a fantastic day.
Thank
And
you.
thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you later.
Thanks, everyone.